The galaxy was wide and endless, filled with countless stars, yet there were always places where no one dared to live. One such place was the Silent Front, a region caught between two powerful alien empires. For centuries, these empires had fought bloody wars across countless systems, but this zone was marked as neutral. It was a graveyard of old ships, shattered stations, and drifting weapons. No colony was allowed, no mining ships entered, and no travelers passed through. It was said to be cursed, a place where forgotten battles still echoed in the silence. To the alien commanders, it was nothing more than wasted space. To humanity, it was a boundary never meant to be crossed. On the edges of the Silent Front, alien fleets stared at each other like predators locked in a standoff. Great warships floated in formation, their hulls covered with scars of past battles. Entire generations had grown up knowing nothing but war between these species. Soldiers died by the millions, commanders rose and fell, but the fighting never ended. Still, no matter how heated the battles became, the Silent Front was left untouched. It was a strange kind of respect. Both sides understood that this place was too dangerous to control. Too many wrecks drifted here, too many hidden mines and traps from wars long past. Any fleet foolish enough to move too deep inside risked vanishing without a trace. To outside observers, this endless conflict seemed pointless. The alien empires had fought for so long they could not even remember the original reason. Resources, revenge, pride, none of it mattered anymore. War had become a habit, a rhythm of life. Their ships clashed in one star system, then retreated to regroup, only to return again. Over time, both sides accepted the Silent Front as a line neither would dare cross. The battlefield might rage elsewhere, but here, only silence reigned. Humanity, far away on the blue planet called Earth, had always been treated as small and unimportant in galactic matters. Their fleets were young compared to the ancient alien armadas, their worlds fewer, their colonies scattered. Most alien leaders barely gave them a thought. At best, humans were seen as traitors or minor diplomats. At worst, they were viewed as weak, a species better suited for farming their own little worlds than taking part in galactic wars. No one believed humans would ever dare to appear on the Silent Front. It was not their fight. It was not their place. And yet the silence carried more weight than the alien commanders realized. Beneath the calm, things were stirring. Humanity had not been blind to the galaxy's violence. While the alien empires spilled blood over meaningless grudges, Earth had been building in secret. Their fleets grew stronger, their weapons sharper, their resolve harder. Still, they stayed hidden, waiting for the right moment. The Silent Front was a line no one dared to cross, but to humans, it was not just a border. It was an opportunity, a stage where history could change. For those who lived in the shadow of the Silent Front, the fear never faded. Civilian colonies on nearby worlds lived under the constant threat of destruction. Refugees ran from burning planets, begging for protection, but neither alien empire cared. Their war mattered more than the lives of the weak. Small trading ships that strayed too close to the front disappeared, swallowed by the wreckage and the quiet. Space itself seemed haunted. In every drifting piece of broken metal, there was a memory of screams and fire. Commanders warned their crews never to look too long at the silent battlefield, for it was said that if you stared into the wreckage, you could almost hear the dead calling. Among alien fleets, stories spread of strange lights in the wreckage. Some swore they had seen unknown ships moving silently, vanishing before sensors could lock on. Others claimed to hear whispers across communication channels, voices from battles long ended. These were dismissed as superstitions, tricks of fear, and long patrols. But deep inside, even the toughest soldiers felt a chill whenever their ships drifted too near. The Silent Front was not only neutral ground, it was a warning. A reminder that even the strongest fleets could fall, leaving nothing behind but silence. In this uneasy peace, alien commanders grew confident. They believed the Silent Front would always remain untouched. To them, it was a rule of the galaxy. No one would dare to break it, not even desperate warlords, not even mad admirals. After all, what was there to gain? Only wreckage, death, and cursed memories. It was safer to keep the battles elsewhere, away from this quiet graveyard of ships. The balance of fear kept both sides in line. But the truth was different. Far beyond the stars, humanity had been watching. Hidden satellites tracked the movement of alien fleets. Listening posts picked up fragments of war chatter. Scientists studied the silent front, mapping the wreckage, measuring the energy fields, and preparing for something the galaxy could not imagine. While alien leaders believed Earth was weak, humans were sharpening their blades in the dark. They had not forgotten how the galaxy once dismissed them, how colonies were left to fend for themselves, how refugees from alien wars begged at Earth's gates. Humanity was patient, but patience had its limits. The stage was set, though no one knew it yet. Alien fleets floated, waiting for their next command. Soldiers polished their weapons, unaware of what was coming. Admirals stared into the silent zone, confident it would remain empty forever. They believed they understood the rules of war. They believed humanity was too small to matter. What they did not know was that the silence would not last. The silent front, untouched for generations, was about to awaken, and when it did, the galaxy would never be the same again. The beacon came alive with a pulse of light so faint it almost went unnoticed. It had been buried for centuries beneath the wreckage of forgotten battles, a relic from a time when a tiny group of human explorers had first dared to wander too far. It should have been dead, its circuits corroded, its signal long faded into dust. Yet somehow, through the silence of the graveyard, it blinked. One flare, then another. A rhythm steady enough to reach across the void. Alien patrol ships scanning the region dismissed it at first as background noise. But deeper, inside humanity's hidden network, alarms began to sound. The code was old, older than Earth's current governments, but it was still human. Buried inside that pulse was a message. We were here. We are still here. It was not a call for help, not anymore. It was a trigger. In hidden bunkers on Earth, officers gathered around screens. In secret stations orbiting distant stars, admirals leaned forward, their faces lit by the faint green glow of the reawakened signal. To them, it was no ghost. It was the signal they had been waiting for, the key to a plan set in motion long before the alien empires had noticed humanity's rise. Silence had protected them, patience had guided them, but this single spark told them the time for waiting was over. Far away, alien commanders argued about the source. Some believed it was the wreckage of an old probe finally breaking apart. Others dismissed it as static interference from the debris field. None of them cared enough to investigate properly. Their wars mattered more than strange flickers in the dark. That arrogance was their blindfold. They never considered the possibility that someone had been watching. Humanity had prepared in shadows. Engineers had built fleets in dockyards hidden behind asteroid belts. Scientists had forged weapons never before seen, ones designed not for show but for decisive endings. Soldiers trained in silence, drilling with a discipline born of anger and necessity. Every insult, every dismissal by the greater powers of the galaxy had been fuel. And now the old beacon whispered the moment had arrived. Deep in the fleet yards, massive ships stirred. Engines that had never burned in open war thrummed awake. Carriers the size of cities rumbled as their hangars filled with fighters. Dreadnoughts gleamed with armor blacker than the void, their cannons lined like silent thunder. On every ship, crews strapped in with quiet determination. They were not venturing out as beggars or traders this time. They were going to step into the galaxy as warriors. The message of the beacon spread quickly among human ranks. No one was meant to arrive. That is why we must. It was a phrase repeated in every briefing, every rallying cry. To the galaxy, the silent front was cursed, a place best left alone. To humans, that curse was an invitation. If no one expected them, then their entrance would shake the universe all the more. From the shadows of the solar system, the war fleet rose. It was not a single squadron, but an armada, countless ships moving as one. They slipped into the void under layers of stealth technology, their signal signatures muted, their formations perfect, and behind them trailed a silence so sharp it felt like the breath before a storm. The beacon had done its job. It had woken the god of war humanity had forged in secret. Across alien communication lines, rumors began again. Unfamiliar energy signatures appeared at the edges of scanners. Unexplained gravitational distortions rippled in systems far from any known fleet. Some laughed at the idea of a hidden power. Others felt the chill of unease but kept silent. None of them realized they were already being surrounded. Humanity had chosen its stage carefully. The silent front, untouched for centuries, was not just empty space, it was theater. A place where every power would soon bear witness, where no empire could claim ignorance. The beacon had lit the curtain, and humanity was ready to step into the spotlight, not as a forgotten species, but as a force the galaxy would never again ignore. At first, it was only a whisper, the kind of rumor born in the long, sleepless hours of soldiers staring at empty screens. Strange echoes, they said, shapes too large to be wreckage drifting between the stars. Captains dismissed it as nerves, commanders as sensor errors, yet the whispers did not stop. They grew, traded between fleets like forbidden stories, ghost fleets, human in design, moving where no humans should. One night, a patrol ship's sensors caught something undeniable. A shadow crossing the wreckage, deliberate, vast, and organized. Before the officers could confirm, it vanished, slipping back into the dark as though it had never been there. The crew swore on their lives it was real, but their report was buried under laughter from high command. Humans? In the silent front? Impossible. And yet the sightings multiplied. Glimpses of enormous hulls reflecting distant starlight, a shimmer like heat haze, too regular to be random. Faint energy trails that suggested a fleet maneuvering with terrifying precision. It became harder to explain away. Still, the alien warlords mocked the idea, for to admit it was to admit fear, that a race they had ignored could appear with power enough to move unnoticed through their most guarded lines. Then the silence broke. From the edge of the battlefield, a single ship revealed itself. It was no alien design. Its lines were sharp, its armor scarred with history, but stronger than anything seen before. Painted across its hull were symbols none of the empires recognized, an ancient Terran insignia worn like a badge of defiance. It did not crawl forward like a scout. It advanced with the confidence of a giant claiming its place. Comms exploded across the fleets. Some believed it a trick, an illusion designed to unsettle them. But when more shapes began to emerge, one after another, the illusion died. Carriers, frigates, cruisers, and entire formations slipped into view with perfect coordination. The scale was staggering, not a handful of ships, but hundreds. They had been waiting in the dark, cloaked in silence, and now they chose to be seen. The alien soldiers, hardened by endless war, felt something unfamiliar stir in their chests. It was not hatred. Not yet. It was unease. The rumors of ghost fleets were real. Humanity had come, and they had chosen the silent front as their stage. The cursed zone, the place no one dared to claim, now burned with the arrival of ships that should not exist. A message cut through the comm channels, carried on a frequency every empire could hear. This field is no longer yours. Stand down or face the judgment of Earth. In that instant, the whispers ended. The ghosts had taken form, and the galaxy realized they were not shadows at all. They were the war fleet of humanity, and they had come not to beg, not to plead, but to claim their place among the stars with steel and fire. The battlefield froze as if the stars themselves had stopped breathing. Across the wreck-strewn void, alien admirals watched in disbelief as the human fleet unfolded from the darkness. One dreadnought after another emerged, their hulls etched with scars of old wars, but armed with weapons that gleamed like thunder waiting to strike. Carriers opened their bays, releasing swarms of fighters that formed disciplined wings, engines glowing a fierce white against the black. No hesitation, no stumbles, only precision, as though every ship had rehearsed this entrance for centuries. The alien crews whispered in stunned voices, their translations failing to carry the weight of what they saw. These were not traders or explorers. These were warships, built for dominance, bearing no crest of subjugation to any empire. Every alien race had believed humanity too young, too fragile, too scattered to matter. Yet here they were, entering the silent front with a fleet that rivaled the greatest armadas of history. Then the humans spoke. Their comm signals spread like fire, cutting through interference and broadcasting to every ship, every commander, every listening ear across the front. The voice was steady, calm, but carried with it an authority that demanded silence. This battlefield is now under Terran protection. Any who fire will answer to us. The words echoed across countless bridges. Some laughed nervously, unable to believe such arrogance. Others felt their stomachs twist, for they had seen the size of the fleet and the order in which it moved. No empire brought that kind of discipline without intent. No species revealed such strength unless they were prepared to wield it. On the human dreadnought's bridge, officers stood at rigid attention. The admiral's gaze was cold, fixed not on victory, but on judgment. This was not a request. It was a declaration of presence, an announcement that humanity had risen from silence to stand at the center of galactic war. For the first time, the silent front was no longer silent. The curtain had lifted, and the stage belonged to Earth. The silence shattered when one alien warlord sneered at the human broadcast. His ships moved forward, sleek and jagged, painted in the colors of conquest. To him, humanity's arrival was nothing more than an insult, a weak species pretending to roar. He ordered his cruisers to fire, confident the humans would crumble as so many others had. The void lit up with missiles and plasma bolts, waves of energy tearing across the wreckage fields. For a heartbeat, the galaxy held its breath, waiting to see the humans scatter or beg for mercy. But the human fleet did not move to retreat. They answered. From the dreadnoughts, lances of pure energy carved through the darkness, striking with precision that made alien gunners gape. Enemy cruisers disintegrated before they could even launch countermeasures. Fighters moved like blades in a storm, weaving between enemy fire, cutting engines and detonating reactors with terrifying accuracy. The alien formation, proud and loud, collapsed within minutes. Ships that had boasted of centuries of victories burned out, their wreckage joining the graveyard of the silent front. The warlord's voice, once so mocking, turned into a scream of disbelief before his flagship was split in half by a single human barrage. The sound cut off in static, leaving nothing but the echo of destruction. Where once an entire squadron had stood, now only drifting wrecks remained, glowing red as their cores bled into the void. The message was clear. Humanity had not come to play at war. They had come prepared, every weapon sharp, every strike calculated. They fought with no hesitation, no arrogance, only purpose. To the alien fleets watching from a distance, the demonstration was more terrifying than any boast could have been. In a few short minutes, the humans had turned mockery into silence, and silence into fear. What had begun as laughter at a young race ended with the galaxy staring at a truth they could no longer deny. Humanity could not be mocked. Their fire had spoken louder than any words. Wreckage drifted where the arrogant warlord's fleet had once stood, glowing faintly as fires died in the cold of space. Across the front, alien commanders stared at their screens in disbelief, the echo of human firepower still ringing in their minds. What unnerved them most was not just the destruction, but the swiftness. Humanity had struck with a surgeon's hand, ending an entire squadron in the time it took others to organize a single volley. The fleets that had gathered for their endless war no longer aimed weapons at each other. Their eyes turned to the newcomers, watching the human formation spread across the void like a shield. Carriers positioned themselves to protect nearby planets, cruisers established defense lines around civilian routes, and dreadnoughts anchored the center with cannons ready to fire in any direction. It was not a posture of conquest. It was something far more dangerous. A posture of guardianship, as though the humans were not claiming territory but enforcing order. Whispers traveled fast. Messages leapt between alien commanders, once enemies, now united by a shared fear. The humans were not supposed to be here. They were not supposed to wield such force. For centuries, Earth had been dismissed, ignored, laughed at. Yet here they stood, dictating the rhythm of battle as if the galaxy had always been theirs to command. Soldiers on alien decks felt the change ripple through their ranks. Some tightened their grips on weapons, others glanced nervously at their captains, waiting for orders that did not come. Pride clashed with survival in every heart. The war they had been fighting for generations suddenly seemed smaller, irrelevant. If the humans could erase fleets so easily, what chance did anyone truly have? The void that had once been filled with constant barrages of fire now hung in uneasy quiet. Not peace, something heavier, something fragile. It was the silence of predators realizing another predator had entered the hunt, one stronger, smarter, and willing to draw blood to make its point. For the first time in living memory, the war between empires faltered, not because they chose to stop, but because humanity forced them to see a new truth. The balance of power had shifted, and nothing would ever return to the way it was before. The human admiral's voice returned, steady and unyielding, cutting through every comm channel as though it spoke directly into the heart of each commander. The message was not wrapped in threats or bargains. It was simple, absolute. Ceasefire would begin now. Refugees would be given safe passage. Civilian colonies would no longer be prey to the ambitions of warring empires. Anyone who defied these terms would answer to the Terran fleet. On alien bridges, silence fell heavier than the void outside. Some commanders clenched their jaws, their pride bleeding at the thought of obeying a species they had once called insignificant. To yield meant humiliation, to bow meant admitting weakness. But their hesitation wavered as they replayed the sight of the warlord's fleet torn apart in minutes. The humans had not boasted, they had acted. And in that action was a promise. Defiance would not end in negotiation, it would end in fire. A few voices rose in protest, declaring they would never bend to Terran will. Their transmissions were sharp, full of venom, but they did not move their ships forward. Bluster without courage. Others, quieter but wiser, opened secure channels and gave orders for withdrawal. Pride might survive another day, but it would not survive a second clash with those human dreadnoughts. Across the sector, the news spread faster than light. Traders whispered it first, then refugees, then entire colonies. Humans had arrived not as servants or victims, but as enforcers of order. The same species mocked as fragile now demanded respect with weapons powerful enough to silence centuries of war. On the faces of alien officers, confusion mixed with fear. How could a race once dismissed as background players command the stage with such authority? And yet, deep down, another feeling began to take root. A reluctant acknowledgement that perhaps these humans had earned their place, not through birthright, not through old empires, but through sheer will. The galaxy was being reshaped by a species no one had truly believed in until this moment. The last alien ship slipped into warp, leaving only streaks of light that faded into the dark. What remained was not emptiness, but a new presence. The human fleet held position, engines low, weapons quiet. A wall of steel and resolve stretched across the silent front. Wreckage drifted in the void like ancient ghosts, but now those ruins were guarded. For the first time in centuries, the battlefield was still. Inside the great human flagships, crews stood in silence, not celebrating, not cheering. They understood what had just happened. With a single decisive act, Earth had stepped into history. The galaxy would no longer see humanity as scattered colonists or background traders. They had forced their way into the center, not with words, but with fire. On distant worlds, refugees whispered the news with trembling voices. The humans had stopped the killing, if only for a moment. Entire families who had fled from burning skies looked up with new hope. To them, the Terran fleet was not just another army. It was a promise that someone was willing to stand when no one else would. Alien empires, watching from afar, weighed their choices in silence. To treat humans as equals was humiliating, but to deny their power was suicide. Old alliances shifted, old rivalries paused, and in every council chamber the same question hung heavy. What will humanity do next? Above the wreckage of forgotten wars, the Admiral looked out from the command deck, his voice low but certain. Hold position. The galaxy has heard us. The stars themselves seemed to lean closer, as though the universe acknowledged a new truth. The silent front was no longer silent, no longer cursed, no longer forgotten. It was Terran ground now, the stage where Earth had declared its arrival, and nothing in the galaxy would ever return to the way it was before.